storage unit hallways are supposed to be empty at night. But when you hear slow footsteps closing in, and a shadow moves where no one should be, your blood runs cold. Because you're not alone out here. The storage unit hallways are supposed to be empty at night. But when you hear slow footsteps closing in, and a shadow moves where no one should be, your blood runs cold. Because you're not alone out here. I never thought a storage unit could make me fear for my life. But that night, standing in front of Unit 47, I learned that some doors should never be opened. Because once you hear a human cry coming from the space right next to yours, you understand storage facilities can hide things no one is supposed to find. It was a Thursday night in Seattle, one of those nights where the rain doesn't pour. It lingers, soaking the air and clinging to your skin like a film you can't wipe off. I had just finished a long shift at work when I remembered I'd left my camera gear in storage. I almost postponed it until the next day, but the thought of rushing in the morning made me drive out there instead. The facility sat on the edge of an industrial area, quiet and dimly lit. Rows of corrugated metal doors stretched under flickering lights, each number painted in fading white. My footsteps echoed unnaturally loud on the wet pavement as I made my way to Unit 47. I remember thinking how lonely the place felt, like a graveyard for forgotten things. No voices, no cars, just the hum of fluorescent bulbs and the occasional drip of rainwater from the roof. As I walked past the other units, I couldn't shake a strange feeling in my chest. It was that mild, primal unease you get when you're being watched. But I was alone. At least, I thought I was. I slid the key into the lock of Unit 47 and twisted. The metal screeched softly as I tugged the door upward. My hands were cold, damp from the misty air. That's when I froze. A sound. So faint at first I thought it was the rain. But no, this was different. A soft, broken sob. Someone crying. It came from the unit next to mine, 46. I turned my head slowly, holding my breath. The door was shut, padlocked, just like all the others, but there was no mistaking it. Someone was in there. And they were hurting. I wanted to say something, but my throat locked up. My pulse thudded against my eardrums. Every instinct told me to get back in the car and leave, but my feet stayed rooted to the spot. Then the smell hit me. Metallic. Sharp. Like rust at first. But I knew that smell. Blood. My mouth went dry. I crouched down, my knees popping in the silence, and peered through the narrow gap under the door. A sliver of yellowish light leaked out, trembling slightly, as if from a single bare bulb swinging above. And then, barely audible through the metal, "Help, please." The words were cracked, desperate, and very real. My body wanted to move, but my brain screamed at me to stay still. I glanced around. The place was dead quiet, rows of metal doors stretching out into shadows, no sign of anyone else. Whoever was in there, they were alone. Or so I thought. The sound of an engine rolled through the distance. A vehicle slowed near the front gate. My stomach knotted as headlights washed briefly over the corridor before vanishing. Someone was watching this place. Someone who wasn't supposed to see me here. I turned back to the unit. My hands trembled as I whispered, "Are you hurt? Do you need me to call someone?" Silence. A heartbeat of nothingness. Then, the rattle of chains, a sudden clank like metal dragging over concrete. The light inside flickered violently, throwing erratic shadows against the slit at the bottom of the door. And then I heard it. A different voice this time. Low. Commanding. Close to the door, like whoever it was crouched down on the other side. "Don't open this door! Don't look! Just leave!" My breath hitched in my throat. The smell of blood grew stronger, mingling with something else. Sweat, fear, stale air that shouldn't be leaking out of a locked unit. Every part of me screamed to run, but I couldn't. My mind spun with questions I didn't want answered. Who was in there? What had I just stumbled into, and why? Why did it feel like both voices were terrified of whoever else might show up? The SUV's engine roared closer again. My heart hammered as I imagined the driver stepping out, finding me here, realizing I'd heard too much. My mouth was dry, my legs weak, yet adrenaline shoved me toward my own unit. I slammed it shut, my lock clicking far too loud in the silence. That's when I heard it, clear as day from under Unit 46. If you tell anyone, you won't be safe either. Something heavy dragged across the floor inside, followed by a sharp metallic snap. Then, nothing. I bolted, my footsteps splashing through puddles, fumbling with my car keys. I swear I saw the SUV parked at the end of the street as I sped out, its headlights off, just sitting there like it was waiting for me. I didn't sleep that night. My ears kept replaying that whisper. My skin crawled every time I thought about how close I was to whatever happened inside Unit 46. The next morning, I called the police. They said they'd send a car to check it out. Hours later, I got a call back. No one had rented Unit 46 for months. It was clean and empty, they told me. No light, no blood, no trace anyone had been there. But I know what I heard. I know what I smelled. I know that two voices pleaded from the other side of that thin metal wall, one begging for help, the other warning me to stay away. A week later, I drove past the facility again, just to see it in daylight. My stomach flipped when I noticed Unit 46 now had a brand new padlock, and scratched faintly into the concrete near the door were two words, almost erased by rain and dirt. Help me. My stuff is still sitting in Unit 47. I can't make myself go back. Every time I pass a row of those corrugated metal doors, I wonder what, or who, might be trapped inside. And I pray that next time, I won't be the one who hears them. It was supposed to be a simple errand. Drop off a few boxes, lock up, and leave. But when the manager handed me the wrong key, I opened a unit that didn't belong to me. And inside, I saw something that made me wish I had never walked into that building. It was early evening in Chicago, the kind of cold that stings your cheeks and seeps into your bones. The sun had already dipped behind the skyline, leaving the city draped in a dull, gray-blue haze. I'd rented a small storage unit 2 weeks earlier after moving out of my ex's apartment. Most of my things were still in boxes, stacked in my car. I just wanted to get this over with, unload the weight, both literal and emotional, and head home. The facility was one of those multi-story indoor ones, with long, narrow hallways and fluorescent lights that flickered just enough to make you notice. It smelled like old cardboard and industrial cleaner, faintly metallic, like a hospital. At the front desk, the manager, a distracted man in his 40s, handed me a key and a tag. "Second floor, end of the hall," he said without looking up from his phone. I didn't think twice. The elevator creaked as it carried me up. My footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as I searched for my unit number, 312. That's when I noticed it. The lock on 312 was already unlatched, slightly ajar. My stomach tightened, but I told myself maybe he'd opened it for me. I turned the key, pushed the door up, and that's when I realized it wasn't my unit, and whatever was inside wasn't supposed to be there. The metal door screeched as it rolled up, loud enough to make me flinch. Inside, the air was heavy, damp, wrong. I expected to see empty shelves or maybe someone's old furniture, but instead there was nothing at first glance. Just a single hanging bulb casting a weak yellow glow over the space. Then my eyes adjusted, And I noticed the walls. They were lined with photographs. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, taped and pinned in messy rows. Every picture showed a woman. Different women, all in public places. A grocery store aisle, a subway platform, a coffee shop. None of them seemed to know they were being photographed. I stepped back instinctively, a wave of nausea hitting me. That's when I noticed something else. A narrow mattress in the corner, stained and rumpled, and next to it, a small pile of purses and shoes. Not mine. Not anyone's who would have given them up willingly. My heart pounded in my throat. I whispered to myself, "This isn't mine. This isn't mine." My fingers shook as I reached to pull the door down, but then I froze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming down the hallway outside. I swallowed hard, stepping backward into the shadows of the unit. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body locked in place, every muscle tensed. The footsteps stopped right outside. A key rattled in the lock. Whoever this unit belonged to, they were coming back. The metal lock scraped, the sound sharp and final. My breath caught in my chest. There was nowhere to hide except behind a leaning stack of boxes near the back wall. I crouched low, praying the thin shadows would make me invisible. The door rattled upward, flooding the space with the harsh hallway light. A man stepped inside, his silhouette broad, deliberate. He didn't notice me at first. He just stood there, breathing heavily, as if savoring the moment of being alone with his collection. Then he spoke to himself, low but clear. "Another one today." She didn't even see me following her. My blood turned to ice. My body screamed to move, but my legs were led. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop any sound from escaping. The man walked to the wall, pulling down one of the photographs. He hummed softly, almost cheerfully, before sliding it into a folder already stuffed with dozens more. That's when his head turned slightly and I realized he'd stopped humming. He sniffed the air, like he could smell my fear. "Who's here?" His voice cut through the silence like a blade. I stayed perfectly still, every heartbeat a cannon in my ears. He took a slow step toward the back of the unit, scanning the shadows. My eyes darted to the half-open door. It was my only chance. I lunged forward, nearly tripping over a box, and sprinted out. The man shouted behind me, his boots pounding the concrete. I didn't dare look back. I just ran, my lungs burning, the hallway stretching endlessly. The elevator was too far. I flew down the stairwell instead, the echo of his footsteps closing in. My palms slapped the metal door to the outside, shoving it open just as his hand brushed my jacket. Cold night air hit my face. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, fumbling with the keys, sobbing as the engine roared to life. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the doorway of the facility, just watching me leave. No rush, no fear. Just watching. I drove home on autopilot, my hands locked on the steering wheel, my breath ragged. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, but I couldn't look at it. I couldn't look at anything except the dark road ahead. When I finally pulled over, safe under a street lamp, I realized I was shaking so hard, my teeth were chattering. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? That I'd broken into the wrong unit and found... what? A stalker's nest? A predator's trophies? And what if he knew my license plate, my face? What if running hadn't saved me, only delayed something worse? The next day, I went back with the manager, determined to report everything. But when we opened the unit, it was empty. The mattress was gone. The photos, the purses, every trace of what I'd seen, vanished overnight. The man was nowhere to be found. No one matching his description had ever rented a unit there according to the paperwork. But I know what I saw. I know he was real. And now, every time I feel eyes on me in a crowd, every time I catch a shadow moving just a little too close behind me, I wonder if he kept a photo of me too. When I rented a cheap storage unit outside Las Vegas, I thought it was a lucky find. Low rent, no questions asked. But I learned fast that the man who owned the place had a reason for keeping it off the books. And one night, I found out what price you really pay when you keep your mouth shut. It was late summer in Las Vegas. The kind of heat that makes the asphalt shimmer and your shirt stick to your back within minutes. I'd just been evicted from my apartment after falling behind on rent. So most of my life was packed into the back of my beat-up Chevy. A friend told me about a storage place on the outskirts of town. It wasn't listed anywhere online, just a row of faded metal units behind a chain-link fence. The sign out front said, "Cash only, no contracts." At that point, I didn't care how shady it looked. I just needed somewhere to stash my stuff until I got back on my feet. The owner, a wiry man in his 60s named Hank, met me at the gate. He had nicotine-stained fingers and eyes that never stopped scanning the horizon, like he was waiting for trouble. He handed me a key, took my cash, and said only one thing before leaving: "Don't come here at night." I thought he was just being cautious, but a week later, desperation had me ignoring his warning. And that's when I learned why Hank's advice wasn't just friendly. It was survival. It was past midnight when I pulled up to the storage lot. The desert air had cooled, but a hot, dry wind kicked up dust around my headlights. I'd just picked up some of my old tools from a friend's garage, and I didn't want to leave them in my car overnight. The chain-link gate was unlocked. No lights were on except for a single flickering bulb near Hank's office. The row of storage units stretched into the dark, silent except for the low whistle of the wind cutting through the metal doors. My unit was number 8. As I walked toward it, I noticed something strange. 2 of the other units, further down, were slightly open. Just an inch, enough for a sliver of light to spill out onto the dirt. I froze. Hank's words echoed in my head. "Don't come here at night." Then I heard it. A muffled sound, low and broken, like someone sobbing, or trying not to. My pulse spiked, my mouth dry as sand. I crouched behind my unit, straining to listen. A door creaked. Heavy boots scraped against the ground. A man's voice, cold and calm, cut through the silence. You know the rules. No noise, or it costs extra. The sobbing stopped instantly. I held my breath, my mind racing. Who was in there? Why was Hank renting out units that weren't for storage? And why did it sound like someone was trapped? The metal latch of one of the lit units clanged shut, followed by footsteps heading my way. I ducked behind my car, heart hammering against my ribs, praying the dark would swallow me whole. From my hiding spot, I saw him. Not Hank. The man walking past wasn't old. He was big, heavy-set, dressed in dark clothes. He carried something in his hand, glinting under the faint light. A padlock. He locked the unit where the sobbing had come from, tested the latch twice, then muttered under his breath before walking toward the office. When the footsteps faded, my curiosity overpowered my fear. My legs moved on their own, carrying me to the locked unit. I leaned close, barely breathing. That's when I heard it. A whisper. A woman's voice, shaking. "Please. Help me." Ice crawled through my veins. My first instinct was to run, get in my car, never look back. But my hands were already on the lock, tugging uselessly. It didn't budge. Then headlights cut through the dark, sweeping across the lot. A truck pulled in fast, tires crunching on gravel. Hank climbed out, shouting to someone inside the cab. Another man followed him, dragging a woman by the arm. Her wrists were bound, her mouth taped. She was crying, fighting, digging her heels into the dirt. I stumbled back, my breath ragged. My mind screamed to do something, but my body was frozen, terror pinning me to the spot. Hank looked around the lot, eyes sharp even in the dark. For a terrifying second, they landed on me. I ducked behind a unit, every nerve on fire. I could hear his boots on the gravel, slow and deliberate, like he was sniffing out a rat. Finally, after what felt like hours, I heard the clang of another unit door closing, followed by the truck engine starting. When the vehicle disappeared down the road, silence fell over the storage lot. Again. Except for one thing. Now there were two faint voices whispering for help behind those padlocked doors. I don't remember running to my car. My next memory is my hands fumbling with the keys, heart punching my chest as I sped down the empty desert road. I didn't stop until the neon lights of the strip were glowing on the horizon. I pulled into an all-night diner and just sat there, drenched in sweat, hands trembling. Every instinct screamed to call the cops. But what would I tell them? That I broke into a private lot, heard whispers, and saw two men dragging someone away. And what if Hank knew I'd seen too much? He had my cash, my name, my face. If those units were being used for something dark, and I knew they were, then the people running it weren't just random criminals. They were organized, careful, deadly. I never went back for my stuff. I drove to another city the next morning and started over with almost nothing. But sometimes, late at night, I'll hear that same broken whisper in my head. Please, help me. And I'll remember the two padlocked doors in the desert, and the way Hank looked straight at me before turning away, like he was letting me live on purpose.